So as I start off, first of all, thank you very much for having me in Brazil. I'm really enjoying it. And wanted to shout out to the e-commerce Brazil team. Vivian, Alice has been helping me. It's a great crew. So thank you for making me feel very welcome. As I said, my job is today, hopefully, to inspire you to think about marketing in a different way, right? And share some lessons that we have had as we are the world's largest gifting company. And, I just wanted to make sure that we appreciate how to think outside the box. Because I think everyone in this room wants to bring back to their teams some level of inspiration. And I wanted to talk you through our own history and our own evolution so that you appreciate the kind of changes going around us and then hopefully take back some inspiration back to your team, right? So we're going to try to make it very non-technical, even though I will show some charts and stuff. But what I want you to really focus on is how to derive that out-of-the-box thinking from this and how marketing has gone from what it was to what it is now, right? So let's get started. The topic today is artificial intelligence, right? So artificial intelligence has been around for a little while. And we keep on thinking about artificial intelligence as something artificial, something which is done by machines, something that is just in the realm of computer science, right? So how did we get here? Like, what does that mean when we talk about AI, right? And remember, AI has been talked about for more than 100 years, right? Before we had all these newspaper headlines talking about what machines are going to do to human beings. Are they going to take away jobs? Are they going to make a dystopian future where man will not be that important, right? And not only that, now we are thinking about AI even in the daily tasks, driving a car. But even more incredible, AI is now going into dystopian ends where it can be used for social engineering purposes too, right? So these headlines have been around us for more than 100 years. And yet, the way we think about artificial intelligence now is this all-pervasive entity around us, right? So the first point that I want to make today is to set the historical context of why we think about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is not new. So let's watch this video, which was recorded almost 70 years ago, talking about artificial intelligence. So let's start the video.
The Thinking Machine.
Hello again. With me tonight is Professor Jerome B. Wiesner, Director of the Research Laboratory of Electronics at MIT. Dr. Wiesner, what really worries me today is what's going to happen to us if machines can think. And what interests me specifically is, can they?
Well, that's a very hard question to answer. If you'd asked me that question just a few years ago, I'd have said it was very far-fetched. And today, I just have to admit, I don't really know. I suspect if you come back in 4 or 5 years, I'll say, sure, they really do think.
Well, if you're confused, Doctor, how do you think I feel?
We're just really beginning to understand the capabilities of the computers.
I've got some film to illustrate this point, which I think will amaze you.
That man isn't playing checkers against a computer, is he?
Sure, and it plays pretty well.
Now, which color?
While most computer scientists saw it as a mere number cruncher, a small group thought that the digital computer had a much grander destiny. Being a general-purpose machine, it could be programmed to do things which in humans require intelligence, play games like checkers and chess, and solve brain teasers.
Let's see what it's turning out.
The field became known as artificial intelligence.
Can machines really think? Even the scientists argue that.
So can machines really think? This was a debate that was still going on 70 years ago. So where are we now today, right? And the first thing that I want to communicate, and this is the center piece of sort of that inspiration moment, is that AI is nothing artificial about it. It is very, very real, and it is very much around us. And we as marketers, product people, sales people, whatever be your profession, it is about to disrupt it. And you need to be very, very, very smart about how to internalize these learnings, right? So we're going to go through and make the case why artificial intelligence is not really artificial. It's very real around us, right? And so I want to start off with a story. How did we get here? How did we end up in this world where AI surrounds us and is disrupting our understanding of marketing, understanding of product, understanding of sales, understanding of task orientation, outcomes, etc., right? So I want to start off with our first thinking about commerce, right? So when you thought of commerce 200 years ago, it was all about the shop, the bazaar, your local merchant, right? So think about it. We started 1-800-Flowers with a single shop in New York in 1976, right? And what was the marketing function in a single shop then, right? It was talking to difficult customers like Woody Allen, very demanding, but it was very simple. Marketing was about relationships, one-on-one relationships, driven by conversation. So you're talking to someone, you're getting to know them, you know their family, you know their life struggle, their history, etc. But it's a conversation, right? Shopkeeper, consumer, relationship based on conversation, right? So that was 1976. What happened 10 years later? So, we are building up stores. We put up more than 200 stores by that time. And we were thinking about, what's the next technological disruption? How do we serve our customers better? So in 1986, we actually bought the first 1-800 number for a gift company in the United States, right? So if you remember, it's calling up a 1-800 number, like you have a toll-free number here in Brazil, and you order something, right? So what did marketing become 10 years later? How did it evolve into the next stage? And this is what we saw, actually, that marketing is relationships, one-on-one store relationship, that was conversation, but now you had massive distribution, right? So there were about 100 million phones in active consumers and another 100 million for businesses. So 200 million devices in 1986 in people's homes. So suddenly now we can have a conversation 24/7, not just with one customer, but with millions of customers, right? What happened another 10 years later as our company is evolving now? 1-800 number, we had millions of customers at that point. Another evolution happened. And this is an important evolution, right? So in 1986, the phone disrupted our ability to have conversations. 10 years down the road, it was another evolution, right? And people remember sort of the World Wide Web when it started. We were also the first company, in fact, not just a gifting company, but we were one of the first companies on CompuServe and AOL to actually have a transactional experience, right? So what did marketing become then? Now, not only you are having one-on-one verbal conversations, but also online conversations. So it is not just someone who has a telephone, someone who can walk into the store, but now someone who can click too, right? So we have evolved, but still conversation going on between the brand and the consumer. So here's a video of an early ad. If you guys remember AOL, that was a big iconic sort of movement in popularizing people's consumption of doing online. So let's look at this ad.
Every day, America Online is making it easier for people to live, work, and play.
Hey, Dan, ready for the game? I'm just finishing up here with my new kayaking friends.
Kayaking friends on your computer?
Yeah, I just got America Online.
Sounds great. Listen, I can't go to the game today.
What?
I've got to send something for my mom's birthday. It's tomorrow. I'll then book plane tickets for our trip next week, and my kids got to go to the library to look up dinosaurs.
Hey, we can take care of all that before we go.
Yeah, right.
Oh, with America Online.
America Online can do all that?
Yeah. How about sending your mom some nice flowers? All you do is click on Marketplace. We place an order.
Call now for America Online, a new way to use your computer to communicate, have fun, and get instant news and information.
So I'm sure that brings back a lot of memories for a lot of people. But the reason I showed this ad again is that two people are having a conversation. But now they are getting the outcome that they wanted, the shopping, booking tickets online. So still relationship, still conversation, but now it has moved to online, right? So what happened 10 years after that? How did marketing change 10 years after that? We saw something very interesting 10 years after that. If you remember, 2006, the most popular device in the world at that point, which was a computational device, a mobile device, was actually BlackBerry. And I believe Brazil was one of the countries where it was very, very popular. So we launched the world's first native BlackBerry app for gifting in '96, right? So you can ask yourself, we have gone from the shop, we have gone to the telephone, we have gone to internet, and now the biggest change of all, in my view, is the mobile era, right? So mobile started becoming really popular. What did marketing become then? How had marketing evolved at that point, right? So now, marketing was not just about conversations and distribution, it is also about multiple devices. So I can have 1-800 call from my home phone, or I can call from my cell phone, but I can also buy it without calling someone. So our conversations are deepening. Our conversations are still going on. The relationships are being built, but now on multiple devices, right? So this is another evolution in marketing that people had to start thinking about. How do we really get to the consumer who is having a mobile device? So marketing adapted and started thinking about multiple devices, right? Something very interesting happened, not in another 10 years' time, but in 2009, we also opened the first Facebook store. And this was first Facebook store by any company on the Facebook platform. And we put up actually a shop on Facebook. And one of the things that we realized in 2009, again, new evolution of marketing, is that this is relationships not just on multiple devices, but multiple networks. So if you remember, a lot of people here remember maybe Orkut as another social network at that time, which didn't survive that well, right? There were a bunch of networks. But this is when marketing started getting very, very complex, right? You have online, offline conversations. You have distribution across multiple devices, and now multiple networks, right? So again, marketing is evolving. This is what our lessons are, right? Another decade later, what happened? So now we are in 2016, right? So we have seen different things happen. What happened in 2016? Let's see a video. So this is Mark Zuckerberg at the F8 keynote conference talking about our launch on the Messenger platform. But it's very interesting, right? Our company's name is 1-800-Flowers. And here's Mark Zuckerberg telling that you don't need to think about 1-800 number anymore. You can just approach us on the Messenger platform, where we introduced the world's first gifting bot as well. So in 4 generations, what we have seen, how has marketing evolved, right? What happened in those 40 years? So 4 decades later, 40 years later, relationships driven by conversations. So now we are coming back a full circle, right? And we are distilling what really marketing is evolving to. And now we'll try to contextualize it in terms of artificial intelligence, relationships. This is the most critical point that you guys need to remember and take away from here, right? And we'll go through some examples of how that is really potentiated, how that comes to life with AI even more deeply. So let's look at how did we get here? How did we get to these 4 evolutionary movements of marketing? What led to it, right? So the first thing, and this is a really important point, data availability is increasing at a massive scale, right? So when can you have real good conversation? When you know something about the other person, right? Then you can have a good conversation. So look at this chart. You know, everyone talks about YouTube videos. Every day we add more videos than what it was before. I'm sure all of us have a lot of emails, you know, a lot of WhatsApp groups, what have you, right? But the more important point is that structured data is also increasing, right? And structured data is very important because you can act on structured data, right? So if you look at this graph, we have an enormous increase in structured data, so much so that we are approaching a 50% threshold, right? That 50% of all the data in the world is understandable, is contextualized, right? It is useful. So this is very important, that you can have the conversation because the data is there, okay? Second point, how did this data become more and more available? And a lot of people in this room will remember we started out with the postal address to mail something, right? So we are sending them something in the mail, right? Then what happened? We started collecting the phone number. If you remember, 1986, 1-800 number, so we started collecting the phone number. Then what happened? Email address came. So we started collecting the email address about the consumer, right? Get an email. Then what happened? Then you had cookie and device IDs when you had multiple cell phones, when you had new tablets come in, right? We started collecting what is the device ID of that target. But what do we have now? It is completely richer than it ever was. Not only do you have the customer's name, address, phone number, email, cookie ID, device ID, but you can also store the person's payment preferences. Do they like to pay with, we just had the great presentation from AliExpress. Do they like to play with AliExpress? Do they like to pay with a credit card, with PayPal? What is their conversion behavior? When do they come to the site? So all this data around the target is the highest it has ever been in our lifetimes. The second point about conversations, which is very important, is we are talking of very massive user bases. The number of people who are on these platforms is incredible. So if you look at this chart, this is showing the chart of all of the main messaging leaders, right? So it took 30 years for internet and computers to reach the penetration of what it took just a few years for WhatsApp to reach that. So if you look at the total number of people, and this chart is a little dated, but now you have billions of users. This is not just millions of users. And by the type of WhatsApp usage I've seen in Brazil, everyone pretty much has access to this kind of platform. So it is not just the internet when you think about it. Think about your consumers as accessing all of these platforms as well. This is a very important movement in how people get accustomed to technology, right? In fact, In Brazil and India, most people experience internet for the first time increasingly through these messaging apps, not through a browser, right? So the second point, how are these conversations getting so massive, so important? And this is an important point, right? What has happened in the last few years is that now the Internet of Things is dwarfing even cell phones. So maybe a few years ago, when you thought about starting a business, you said, okay, let me have a phone number, I need a website, I need a mobile site. But all of that is about to get minimized by the Internet of Things, right? So just look at the graph, right? Even mobile phones look so small compared to the devices that are going on. So that means each one of us is going to be surrounded by devices, right? And the more important thing is the consumers will choose which device to interact with you. So if you're a brand, if you're a bank, you're a utility company, you cannot tell the customer, go to the website. The customer is going to choose, how do I interface with you, right? So any device, so look at Amazon, what Amazon did. They put the brands in a single button and put it on the washing machine. So if you're a brand, suddenly now, to get to a customer's washing machine, you can just create these dash buttons, right? And the customer is choosing and saying, instead of going to Amazon.com, I'm just going to press this button. My choice as a consumer, right? And then you have Apple Watch, many different devices, newer devices coming in. And it's a great, great vehicle to understand and get closer to these customers, to develop the relationships, because now they have multiple devices around them, right? Another really important thing to understand is the device interface. We went from click to tap to voice. And this is really important to appreciate, that customers are choosing more and more. I see a lot of behavior here also where people will speak into their phones, right? And the critical point to understand and appreciate is that a human being understands 90% of what's being said. Not 100%, 90%. The machines are approaching that threshold. So the machines are getting to such a good level that when you speak to the machine, it is getting better or the same as a human, right? So in the next 5 years, voice will become a very important interface around us because the machines can get to this level, right? And then the second point is the accuracy is improving. So it is not just that the machine can hear what is being said and interpret it, but it can interpret it right. So when you ask for directions, it is able to go through algorithms and, I speak with an accent, but it is still able to understand that. That's amazing. We have not had any time in human history where machines can actually understand human language. Because if you think about human language, whether it's Portuguese, English, Indian, Hindi, what have you, the languages are very complex. And for a machine to get to that level of understanding is an incredible movement that is going to get more and more spread out as we go through the next 5 or 10 years, right? The second thing is that the interface, so this is an Amazon Echo speaker. The interface is not just going to be on speech, on words. It's also going to be AR, augmented reality, artificial reality. It's going to be VR, virtual reality. If you remember, one of the most successful games in the last 5 years was Pokemon Go, right? Physical, virtual combined. So it is not just the interface is changing, but the consumers are fundamentally looking at the interface in a new way. And you need to think about that. So if you're a furniture seller, can you provide that physical and virtual experience to the customer? Maybe they can look at the furniture they want to buy in virtualized outcome, just using that device. So it opens up a whole host of possibilities. And by the way, Pokemon Go, if you think about it, never taught people how to use their phone. People learned it themselves because they liked that experience so much. So this is important to understand and appreciate that customers are not just having a relationship with you because you tell them which device to go to. They are choosing the devices. They are choosing how to have an interface with you as a company, as a brand, and you must cater to that outcome. You must be ready for that outcome, right? So we come back again to the idea, is AI really about artificial outcomes? And this is our outcome from that. We don't think AI is artificial. It is something very real. So then what it is? How do we think about AI? And this is what sort of the essence of what I'm trying to say is, it's an accelerator. It is a jet fuel to your one-on-one relationships. We have never had in human history a chance to go back to that shop floor where we started from, where I know something about you, where I can understand what your context is, and then have that conversation one-on-one, right? So this is what our learning, at least as a company, has been after sort of being on the edge of innovation for almost 40 years now. And even more important than having the conversation is the one-on-one relationship, right? So if someone comes to your website, you can use these examples to really cater to who they are, not just a filtration, not just select your size. You can literally say, hey, Alice, what's your exact thing that you are looking for? And the machine is going to remember the next time Alice comes to the site, right? So let me give you some examples of why we think it's a real accelerator of one-on-one customer relationships. So here we are. We talked a little bit about the Facebook Messenger platform. So now we have bots on Facebook Messenger. We have bots on Google Assistant. And basically think of bots as your 24-hour assistant that any customer can talk to, right? So instead of your shop being open, 10 hours a day, or maybe, you have online chat 24/7, this is a massive user base, as I told you. So there is probably 2 billion devices with Facebook Messenger and around 1.5 billion on Google Assistant. This is an incredible number of people, right? So we launched this around 2 years back. And in the last sort of 3 months, we also launched on Apple Business Chat, right? You can chat now on the iMessage directly with us as a company. So we were one of the first to launch that as well. Another way to have conversations with your user is to think about messaging as a platform, right? So I don't know if in the Mobile World Congress, if you followed the news, there was a very important release, right? And that was that your messaging, and by the way, messaging is probably the most used app on any phone, right? All of us can relate to that, right? How many times do you pull it out for WhatsApp or your text messages, right? So now messaging has become a platform. Instead of just messaging one-on-one, you can message a company, and you can get back intelligent responses, right? So we have put down 2 responses out here. Instead of us telling you the order is delivered by you going to the web page and checking, I can send you that notification as a rich notification. So this is very, very important. Now you have access to 2 billion customers just by creating a chat interface. Very important movement. All Android phones in the next couple of years will start supporting this messaging as a platform outcome. Voice skill set. So I said, voice is improving. It's getting to a point where it has great understanding of what you're talking about. So we launched on Alexa, which is Amazon's speaker. Then we launched on Google as well. And it's very interesting because our initial expectation of voice was that people will just absolutely not want to go through an experience where they are speaking, because sometimes it's easier to type. But this is astounding. The number of brand conversations we have had with customers using voice is way beyond what we ever expected. And this is great learning. And I'll tell you one very important thing, both about bots and voice skill sets. Your competition cannot copy these things. Because if you think about it, a web page, someone can look at the HTML structure and they can go and program a same looking web page, right? Let's say you optimize the conversion funnel. They can go and work with the same vendor and optimize their conversion funnel too. But bots and voice are different because they are one-on-one. So you cannot, as a competitor, come and copy 1-800-Flowers voice bot because it is specific to that instance and it is learning. Right? So think about artificial intelligence as one-on-one learning. It is empowering that. So your competition cannot copy it. And every day, your competition has not put up a bot or a voice, right? They are one day behind because your machine is learning about that person, right? So if there is one thing I would urge you to do is to think very seriously. Even if 5 customers use it in a month, it will learn those 5 instances to have the right conversations. So this is important to appreciate. This is not web page. This is not a mobile site. This is a machine learning skill set that has a strong competitive advantage over time, right? Then we also have something called intelligent agents. So now increasingly what you will find as you're going through an experience with a brand or a company, that they have intelligent agents. So we worked with IBM to create a gift concierge, right? That if you come to the website, it asks you a few questions and then understands what is the perfect gift to send, right? And you can appreciate most men love this outcome, right? They don't have to think about what's a perfect gift that they need to buy. The other one that I really like that we have done some work on is this company called Smart Gift that we partner with. And what Smart Gift allows us to do, think about people not knowing the address of someone they need to send a gift to, right? Or they want to send a gift, but the recipient wants something else as an outcome. So we worked with this company that is based deeply on machine learning and artificial intelligence to give customers a choice. If you know the address, good, you can go down our funnel. If you don't know the address, then a smart agent will go and talk to the recipient and get you that information. So this is now not just what problems you can solve in your web page, in your conversion funnel, but you can use AI to actually go and do the work for your customers. And this was a very important learning for us because a lot of people in the modern age, if you think about it, we don't know the physical address. We know the WhatsApp ID, but we don't know what their physical address is. Or maybe they have a preference. They want it sent to the office versus the home, or vice versa. So this is an important outcome. The next one that we also worked on, so we come back to this idea of a real accelerator on one-on-one relationships, right? So I showed you some examples of what we worked on. Bots, intelligent agents, Smart Gift, to really help you inspire that this is not about, very fuzzy computer science and you need PhD to understand this. Everyone in this room is a user of artificial intelligence. Everyone in this room is going to get disrupted in their jobs, disrupted in how you do any type of commercial activity by artificial intelligence. And you have to think back to what it is actually empowering you to do. You have to think to the essence of what artificial intelligence is. And we come back to the idea that it is one-on-one customer relationships, right? So I want to now use the rest of the time to really talk about 3 lessons that we have learned once we started thinking about artificial intelligence in this deeper, more real manner, right? The first lesson we learned is that early traction, early days, we are still going through an evolutionary phase. But bots and intelligent agents are showing a greater traction over voice. So what we are finding is that our interaction rate in Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, Apple Business Chat, Google Assistant platform is higher than expected compared to voice. Both very important, but at least initial traction is with bots and intelligent agents. So if you are thinking about doing something in innovation, I would say at least start building a bot. Very important. Just the skill set of building one will help you for 10 more years down the road. The second lesson we learned is that machine learning, so the basis of a lot of artificial intelligence is machine learning, right? And machine learning is accelerating not just the conversation, but all the stacks. So how do you acquire a user? So right now, we use this company called New Engine to really do performance marketing on Google and Facebook. And that whole bidding strategy is based on machine learning. So it is not just machine learning in customer experience, but even how you acquire the customer, how you bring the customer inside your experience is getting accelerated because of machine learning. And you should definitely be thinking very hard if you are spending money for any performance marketing, is it based on machine learning or not? Otherwise, the people who are on the other side of the auction are going to win against you every time. Very few times you will be able to overcome Google or Facebook in how much money they're going to extract from you, right? Unless you are also employing machine learning. The third lesson that we learned is that AI is not just about outside, it is about inside as well, about your culture, about your company, and what does that mean? And I really want you to think very deeply about this because all of us are going to more and more co-evolve with machines around us, right? Our co-workers 5 years down the road may likely be a machine, right? And it's not just a robotic machine or something. It can just be a simple program on a computational device, right? So this is the money slide. This is the I think at least, if there is one slide you take away from today's lecture, I want to focus on this slide. So if you think about 20, 30, 40 years ago, the way people got a job or got ahead was based on IQ, right? How intelligent are you, right? Then they said, oh, intelligence is not enough. You need more, right? So basically, you need something like EQ. You need to be emotionally intelligent too, right? You need to have left brain, right brain combination. But because of artificial intelligence, we are in a next evolution where actually we are evolving from IQ, EQ, to LQ. What is the learning quotient of your team? How fast can your team learn? Because you are now basically in a race with a machine learning outcome. So you need to co-evolve and learn faster. So when I hire people now, of course I look at their grades, I look at their work experience, but I also ask myself the question, are they good learners? Can they learn something new today? Can they teach someone something new today? Because every day as a professional, what you know, tomorrow is going to change. So you really need to hire people, and the whole teams need to focus on learning as an activity, not just doing something, but what are you learning as a group? What are you learning as an individual? And this is going to be a lifelong exercise for all of us. And this kind of forums are great because you pick up the essential learning distilled from everyone else, from all the great brands that are here, right? But if I were to take one thing away from today's lecture, it'd be this, that you have to orient yourself around learning about your customers, learning about your team, and then inspiring them to learn more, because that's the way you will stay on top of artificial intelligence, right? So the couple of internal lessons we had was that you need right incentives to actually get to the right outcome. So it's not just about putting more people, but you have to incent them more. So one of the things we do in our company is that we actually pay you a little more if you fail, not if you succeed. because you learn more when you fail. So it's very important. Incentive drives behavior. So you need to have the right incentive. The second point is right platform versus right talent. Again, how are you inspiring the team? How are you letting them go to conferences so they can learn? This is way more important than having the right talent, that you have the right platform for that talent, right? So anyways, we come back to the same idea. So after 40 years, we are at a point where we finally appreciate these changes being brought by artificial intelligence. And why it is so important for us? Because it's an accelerator of this one-on-one relationships. What we really wanted to do from day one is now coming back to us. And so as a marketer, I'm superbly excited, because I don't think in our lifetimes we'll have another opportunity to really use learning to get to a better outcome for our customers. And our customers also want to have that one-on-one relationship, one-on-one conversation with us, right? So I really encourage you to think about this idea of artificial intelligence not as something which is out there, but something that is doable today, something that you can start thinking about today and go back to your teams and inspire them of how to build these conversations, right? So not human versus bot, human and bot. Thank you.